These are the top 10 mistakes when buying a property in SMSF for bloody newbies. And if you're a noob, you might be asking, what is a SMSF? It is a self-managed super fund, noob. And before I draw out the 10 tips, here's how a SMSF buying property works. So to set up the premise of this SMSF purchase, for example, there's a couple, husband and wife, or husband and husband, I didn't really care. You guys work full time. For example, combined income is 250K, and you've been working PAYG for the last 10 years, a salary job, and you guys have super paid into a retail fund, for example, Hester or MLC or whatever. And let's say your combined super between both of you guys is about 200K in the superannuation account. And it's important to talk about the trigger point here. Why would someone use their super to buy property? Well, usually it's when you have maxed out your borrowing capacity in your personal level. For example, your income and your liability, the bank goes no more lending for you, but then you still want to buy another property for investment purposes. And say you have a financial planner or a financial advisor or accountant and go, hey, you can actually use your retail super and transfer it into a self-managed super fund, which you can run to use this to buy another property. And on top of that, you scroll through TikTok and then you stumble upon a very smart mortgage broker, and then you learn that the fact that the bank can use a SMSF to buy a property and not worry about you being maxed out in your personal level, and you go, aha, let's do that. And then you get financial advice from your financial planner and your accountant, not your mortgage broker, not from me. And the advice is, if you buy property through SMSF, the rental income is taxed at 15%, not at your normal tax bracket, which is 38 to 40%. And also when you sell your property in the transition retirement phase and you're retired, there's zero CGT. That's correct, guys. That is the biggest tax loophole over here. If you buy property through your SMSF, and for example, you buy it now, and then you sell it in like 20 years time when you're retired, and you made like say $1 million in profit, you don't pay a single cent in tax. Versus if you don't buy in an SMSF and you buy in your personal name, well, after 12 months, 50% of that $1 million, which is 500K, is tax. So right now I'm 2 minutes in and I haven't really gone through the 10 tips, but who cares, because you're very invested in this video right now. So through your accountant and financial planner advice, you set up a self-managed super fund, which is consisted of a super fund trust, for example, Spouse and Co. super fund trust, and then this is owned by a company, a shell company, and then you form this SMSF. And then later you roll over this 200K, which is sitting in your retail super fund, into your self-managed super fund business account. And then you get a pre-approval with your very smart mortgage broker, which you heard from TikTok. And then with your 200K, you can potentially purchase a property up to 500 to 550K. So right now your retail super fund amount of super is rolled over to your SMSF account, and right now you have a pre-approval to buy a property up to 550 to 600 potentially with 200K of super. And at this point, probably 80% of the people watching this has scrolled over, so you guys are left with the top 10 mistakes, and pay attention. Mistake number 1 is not meeting the sole purpose test. So you might be asking, what is the sole purpose test then? Well, you have an SMSF fund right now, right? Well, the members under it is your spouse and yourself, and also your kids, the beneficiaries. And then the sole purpose test is to provide retirement benefits for these members under it. And the common breaches of this are, for example, you buy a holiday house and you guys live in it. So you're actually deriving benefits before retirement, which is a no-no. Or maybe you buy the property under SMSF and you get your folks, your parents to live under it, and they pay you rent, and you try to claim a tax deduction against that. And common mistake number 2 is you do not have any strategy in terms of your SMSF. And the reason I know that is you cooked up the SMSF strategy with no financial planner help, which means you have no statement of advice from the planner in terms of the advice given to open an SMSF to buy property. And the reason you have an SMSF set up in the first place without a financial planner is because you clicked on some YouTube ad that led to some property guru who's basically a spruiker. And then they give you this diamond nickel talk, which is, oh, you don't need that much money in your SMSF. You can only have like $20,000 or $30,000 in your super, and you can buy a property, all that BS. Mistake number 3 that I see in terms of breaches to the SMSF ruling is that you made improvements to the property rather than just normal repairs. So according to the SIS Act, which is Superannuation Industry Supervision Act, you cannot use borrow funds to improve the property, and improvements include additions, granny flats, extensions. This cannot be done. And mistake number 4 is when using debt in terms of the SMSF buying property, is that the property must be held under the corporate trustee, the holding trust with a corporate trustee, and not directly in the SMSF. And step number 5 is, I think the banks will rectify this, but in case you're borrowing private money for this, is that you can only use a simple loan agreement for SMSF purchase, not an associated party loan. A related party loan is where the members of the SMSF act as the bank towards the fund. They will then lend money to SMSF instead of the bank. And the reason being is it's very hard to refinance an SMSF loan if it's been borrowed from an associated party loan. It's much more simpler and acceptable for banks for a simple loan agreement. Just accept that. And mistake number 6, which is an extension of the mistake in improving the property in point number 3, is not differentiating between renovations and repairs and not keeping a logbook to show this differentiation. For example, this drawing over here is a kitchen and you want to make cosmetic renovations that replaces the existing kitchen, or for example a bathroom. That is allowable with your borrower funds. But for example, you use your SMSF fund to provide an extension to this kitchen or this whatever bathroom over here, that is not allowed because that is an improvement. So basically anything that involves extension or knocking down a non-loading wall, that is a no-no. But then a lot of you will say, hey, that's not fair. I want to improve that property that I bought with SMSF. That's fine. You just can't use the debt borrow. You must use the internal cash in the SMSF. And the trick for that, guys, is you have to have the builder write 2 invoices, one for improvement, one just renovations. And mistake number 7 is cancelling your insurance too early. For example, you have retail fund where the 200k is parked, you have existing insurance, and then you move it over here, and therefore there's no more funds here, and this cancels out. I see this happening all the time. They get excited with the property purchase, there's a broker involved, and they transfer all that money in their retail super into the SMSF to do the purchase, which I get them a pre-approval. But what they don't realize is when they don't have enough money in the retail fund to support the existing insurance in place, that policy and those policies in there get cancelled. And then a lot of you say, well, what's the big deal, Q? Well, when I'm under my SMSF, I'll just open up the insurance. No, because prior to that insurance being held in the retail fund, say 20 years ago or 15 years ago, your health was better, right? Right now, if that's closed and you get the new insurance, well, you have pre-existing health that maybe that insurance that you had before would have covered, but now it's not covered. Very complex. Speak to a financial planner. Mistake number 8 that I see is paying double stamp duty on the property. Usually when the home loan is active, which means it's settled to transact and purchase this property, the property must be transferred from this holding trust to the SMSF. This sometimes triggers a double stamp duty. So you need to make sure you use a very experienced solicitor or conveyancer that's used to SMSF purchases, because they need to show additional documentation to waive that double stamp duty to make sure one stamp duty is only charged for that property. Mistake number 9, which I see a lot, is that, members buy property from members within the SMSF, which is a no-no and not arm's length. For example, usually those big families, they're rich and they think they want to dodge tax. So the husband, wife, and the parents are under the SMSF, and then the father-in-law sells the property to the daughter or the son-in-law. No, you can't do that. For a residential SMSF, remember guys, you can only buy property from a non-related party member, which is outside the SMSF. And mistake number 10, which I often see, is that the SMSF doesn't have a binding death nomination. A lot of people believe incorrectly that the funds in the SMSF belongs to them. No, because especially when you have about 3 to 4 members, for example, you, your sister, your dad, sister, whatever it is, right? They have dependents and they have beneficiaries, and they are entitled to those funds as well. So you need a binding death nomination or a superannuation will to decide exactly what happens to the funds in the SMSF. And if you don't have one, or there's a deviation to the binding death nomination, well, it goes to a non-binding nomination, which means for those who are survived in the actual superannuation, those surviving trustees, they'll decide what to do with your dead person's funds. So there you have it, guys. Very long video. If you stay to end, congratulations. It means you're a very serious investor, or you're just maxed out your borrowing capacity and you're desperate to get another property. These are the top 10 mistakes. So jump in the comments. Let me know what you think.